taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality podcast for Saturday, October 19th, 2019. The Saturday morning edition of the show. My name is Asheninity. I'm here as always with Cybsidian, and we've got so much to talk about today. We've got some, there was a leak of CDPR gameplay. Now it's been quickly plugged, but that's interesting. It's, I believe the first time that somebody snuck a camera into a CDPR live presentation of Cyberpunk 2077 and then uploaded the footage. Sab, you were saying it's not necessarily the first time it's happened that somebody snuck in and recorded it, but they
there was, as far as I know, and as far as I've been able to hear from the grapevine, more than one person grabbed footage at the at E3 and at Gamescom and a couple other places. This is the first time that it's hit the internet. Why would somebody record it and then? You might be asking why would somebody record it and not put it out? The primary answer to that is that apparently, and I need your confirmation on this, but apparently not everybody has an instantly 98% or higher memory recall.
Most people do not. No,
that's really weird, but it's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, no. As far as the one situation that I'm aware of for sure, it was a larger news group, and it was for internal documentation use only, so that to make sure that they were accurately reporting things, and that it was mostly was just audio. There wasn't too much visual components to it, but it was mostly audio, so that they could go through and properly rename stuff. Now, that's still against the agreement, obviously, and if that ever gets out, you are in big
somebody's going to get
trouble.
Blacklisted. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why you typically don't do it, because I mean, again, if you're even remotely good at security, you can, and if you've prepared for something like this, you can pretty much pinpoint who it was within the audience. I don't know if this was the case, whether they were being this aggressive with it, but it is possible. Like for there's certain things when dealing with certain governmental agencies and certain stuff where it's like where your access to information is so those of you who watched like Game of Thrones, I'm going to spoil something that happens in like the second season or something like that, second or third season. Tyrion is trying to figure out who keeps leaking his stuff, so he tells 3 different stories to 3 different people, and then the queen finds out about only one of those stories. Boom, he's discovered where the leak is. Whether that was that person or one of their assistants or helpers below them, he now knows exactly who was leaking because he leaked a particular story. This is being done in real world politics right now. It's really, really funny. Ever wonder why there'll be a news story that comes out one day and the story will be you'll be like, what? That sounds crazy. And then less than 24 hours later, they have to do a retraction and go, yeah, we messed up. Turns out that this wasn't true. And the reporter looks like they're in deep trouble. Like their face is just, I remember one in particular where the reporter came on, announced this thing. He had this like big smug look about his face. He was so happy. Then the next time he was doing his like, oh, I'm so sorry, I messed up speech, is because he knew that he was probably going to get fired for this leak, for putting this information out there. And not only that, but his contacts were all burned. So like his contacts he had just got off the phone or just talked with them, and they were like, yeah, basically my life is over. I've been ID'd now. Turns out that story that I gave you was actually there just to pinpoint who the leaker was. Now I'm screwed, and you could see it in their faces. And it's like, yeah, okay, so that's kind of cool. But a little bit on internal stuff. It's not hard to do that during like live promos and stuff like that. You just key in like a few like subtle tonal shifts in music or audio, or add several like keynotes that you can identify. So that way you narrow it down to which of the 10 or so showcases it was. And then you just, if it's visual, you have like they've got this there's a little spider eye light. If you're ever looking at a stage at a special presentation, and you can see like you see a small little blue light, it's a tiny little blue light coming from like right above the TV. It's kind of weird, or the monitor or the screen or whatever. There's this tiny little blue light, and you notice that if you move a little bit over, like, if you move a seat or two over, that little blue light turns into like a little green light. And if you move a few more seats over still, the little green light turns into a red light. If you ever wonder what that is, that's a video demarker denoting your location. So if you had a camera, that would pinpoint your exact location, because it's like a bug eye that's set up to like basically points a different color light at every single chair or a section of chairs. And then if you were to record the footage, you wouldn't think very much of a tiny little blue light coming through something, but that's pinpointing your exact location. So a little bit of inside baseball there, which I'm sure is boring to most people, but is really, really cool to security peeps and people who are interested in keeping trade secrets. So it's a really cool little trick. But yeah, so that's what that's there for, and it's there obviously to help people keep secrets. So yeah, so that's the little bit of background as to how I'm not saying CDPR has done any of these things, but that's just a little bit on how people combat this kind of stuff. Because when you're dealing with this high level stuff and you're signing NDAs, you got to make sure that you stick to those NDAs.
Yeah.
And it's
they're not going to be letting you back if they discover it's you that's leaking stuff. And they've been clamping down on it hard. Like every time a video of this has gone up, it's been taken down very quickly.
Yeah. And it's not very good footage either. It's not very good footage, and it's not it's not something that you want to see, because it's like it's a little spoilerish. B, it's a little like, it's still not, the game is still not perfected, right? They still got 6 months to wrap this up, and a game 6 months to release. I mean, a lot of games are. I was doing this one thing with Ash yesterday. Y'all remember the Sixth Sense movie, right? And the little kid sitting in the corner and crying. He's like, "I see dead people." Mm-hmm. It's like, I have been to early showcases of games where there's a non like industry connected person who somehow has gotten in to see the thing, and they're horrified because they just saw a placeholder graphic, right? And they're on the ground, fetal position, rocking back and forth, going, "The game is going to be terrible. I saw this blue floating orb that was just blue, and it had this checker white box, and there was just this weird picture of some random guy in the middle of it." It's like, what was that? I see placeholders. It's like that. That's the kind of thing, right?
Your sarcasm algorithm is live and well.
Yeah, well, but it's true. There's some
absolutely
people,
exactly, and so there's a reason why they control who gets into these things. You want people there who understand that, okay, this is work in progress. This is a demo. There may be some things that are not perfect. There may be some placeholder graphics, that kind of a thing. And so,
like every year, I hear it from like people who are in that they get into like that through a Kickstarter or something, right? They get into like an early access alpha or something like that. And I've seen people like like rage on like, what is this icon? It's like, oh man, this is so unprofessional. And it's like, what's the icon? Well, it's just this white thing with a question mark in it. And it's like, you're just like, it's called a placeholder. It's not there for release. It's just there because they haven't finished the art for it. Well, you think that they could have put something in there. They did. That's what that is.
And it's a big, like, I know of games that all their placeholder graphics were like just bright pink, so that they're when they're going through the game, they can immediately see where there's the objective of those is not to make it look pretty. It's to say, hey, we need to put a graphic here, and you don't want to miss those for launch.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, there's not a ton, like there was nothing groundbreaking in this leaked footage. Some of you have been talking about it in our Discord server. Apparently the destructible environments look really cool. Apparently some of the music's really awesome. And watching the what's it called, the nanowire is really awesome. So some cool stuff to see. People were seeking it out of curiosity. But honestly, if you haven't seen it, I don't think you're not missing a ton. There's nothing super groundbreaking or anything. But anyway,
and this type of content, this is the stuff, these short little clips. We are expecting to see more of this stuff, obviously, before April. I will be very surprised if we don't get another about a 5 to 8 minute ish gameplay showcase between now and Christmas. I really suspect that we're going to see something probably at the Game Show Awards, maybe a new trailer type or something. But they're definitely going to have, like, there's a bunch of events still, and I think that we're going to see something. Obviously, the one thing that I can say for sure is that don't expect that destructible environments to stick around. This is one of the things where they've said it before. They really do want to include it, but it is an absolute, it beats your console to death. And it is very, very, very resource consuming. So this is some of the stuff that may or may not still show up. And that's why they don't want to show this stuff off yet, because they don't want to make a promise like, here's what is going to be in the game, and then not have that in the game, right? That makes a lot of people quite annoyed. We know that at some point, some version of the game will be released with as much destructible environments, but this might be something for the next console generation, or kind of like a DLC release, or a special DLC or turn on switch patch or something like that down the road. But at release, you want to have you do want your experiences to be mostly the same on all of the different current systems and whatnot. So unfortunately, most of the time they do, if they're going to turn off a major feature, they're going to turn it off for everything. If they can't get it working on just one of the consoles, if Xbox the weak link, then unfortunately everything has to get down to that level. Usually, not graphics usually can fluctuate a little bit on each thing. That's fine. And they may end up having a switch for it on and off in the PC version, because your PC rigs right now, your PC rigs, your standard PC rig is twice as strong as the as one of the consoles right now.
Yeah,
like something you pick up for basically the same price. It's like a $500 system is equivalent to one of the consoles. A $800 system is going to be twice as good. Give or take, and that's because obviously the console generation is ending. It's not because the consoles are bad, right? It's because they're old, and that's fine.
The current generation is getting up there.
Yeah, it's getting up there. That's why there's another PlayStation being released next year.
Well,
obviously. So that's not a dig against the consoles. It's just stating fact. And then we're gonna have obviously upgrades when this stuff comes out. So yeah.
Right. Yes, I'm picturing my grandpa lying on the couch. Grandpa PlayStation 4. You want me to run what now? All right. So yeah, that's one of the Cyberpunk stories today. The leaked footage. But like again, they're controlling the flow of this, not because they're being killjoys, but because they want us to see good quality stuff. And again, you've got some crappy footage recorded on somebody's spy cam, or somebody was like, it looks like they recorded it on an iPhone 2. They don't necessarily want that out there. It is not necessarily even about what's in the footage as much as it just looks like crap. Probably it's about what's in the footage as well. But anyway, we got another Cyberpunk story. We've got a new interview with John Mamais we're going to get into. Plus, we've got a bunch of other stories today that we're going to blast through. Blizzard got blasted by the U.S. Congress. Outer Worlds has a launch trailer. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is getting delayed, sadly. Bethesda is knee-deep in more bull crap. What are the names of those two-headed bulls in the Fallout series?
Brahmin?
The Brahmin. They're knee-deep in Brahmin doo-doo again. If you're listening live, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. Don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. And if you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. We appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platforms, so if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. Hello to everybody who is listening live. James Fullerton in the chat, does the thumbnail quote mean you have recommended specs? No, we do not. The thumbnail quote is... So the interview with John Mamais we're going to dive into in just a moment. He talks about the new tech that they have been developing and working on for this game. It's really interesting. We do not... Bless you. We do not have recommended specs yet.
Sorry, excuse me. I hit the wrong mute button. I'm too used to. We are on a new chat system that is apparently working right now. However, I did hit the wrong mute.
Yeah,
button
your audio is coming through crystal clear today,
which is so much nicer. Like it's been a headache for the last few weeks.
Yes, absolutely.
For some reason, Discord is just not working. Let us know if you're having difficulties with audio with your friends and stuff on Discords, because we are finally happy to have found a solution, but it's kind of weird that
it's been a headache.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it's been such a headache, but yeah, apologies for that.
Yeah. All right, and apparently the CDPR is going to be giving some live presentations somewhere in Europe today, and we've got TB Elias in the chat who is offering to take questions. So thank you for that. If you're on our Discord server, TB, let us know. I'm not sure what your username over there would be, and we might fire you a question or two after the podcast if we come up with anything. But I know you're taking some questions there, so that's really cool. And if you get the chance to get them in and get them answered by who was it you said was giving the presentation? Was it?
I believe it's Miles.
Oh, it's Miles. So Miles Tost is giving a presentation. So if you get some questions in there and answered, please let us know. We'd love to hear about that. CD Projekt Red was at PAX Australia recently, and OSGamers.com sat down with John Mamais, head of the CD Projekt Red's Kraków studio. And they talked about pushing graphics technology forward, building Night City, and in general, just kind of the tech that they've developed to build this game, because it's a massive step up from The Witcher and from The Witcher 3, even though it is using the same engine. They have upgraded, they've just built out their tech to accommodate things that, The Witcher didn't need, first of all, but that, we haven't seen before in any of their previous games. And so this is really awesome. Oh, by the way, the thumbnail today, you'll see the thumbnail has a picture of V sitting on a subway with some chaos happening in the background. I'm actually going to show you the full version of that here. This is from PC Gamer magazine, and this is a spread that they have they put together for their I guess, a feature story on Cyberpunk 2077 that they're going to be releasing, and so some people are calling this a cover. This is not a magazine cover. You can see the page numbers in the lower right and left hand corners, but
I'll give you a hint. It's not a page cover when you see numbers.
Yeah, but I mean it's like a graphical cover to the story, maybe.
Yes.
But anyway, some interesting stuff here. So there's a quote in the bottom right. Does 2077 hold true to the cyberpunk genre, and is that even a good thing? By Alex Spencer. Is that question puzzles me, because of course it's a good thing if it holds true to the cyberpunk genre. That's a puzzling question to me. But yes, I mean, when you're talking about the IP that basically defines the genre, and the guy that developed that IP is heavily involved in this game, yes, it holds true to the cyberpunk genre. So that's it. Anyway, I don't know what the article actually says. That hasn't been, that's not public at this point as far as I know. But anyway, interesting scene here. We got V on the subway, or the metro as you Europeans call it. We've got a dead guy lying in or somebody who's lost a lot of blood in the bottom left, and some guy sleeping with his headphones on the right hand side. Just an average day in Night City, and of course, Arasaka security attempting to break in. So, if this is a scene from the actual game, that is really awesome. But something that people have been really working on trying to decipher is this map here. And I'm going to attempt to zoom in on here. So we see the Night City Metro map, and it's expanded from what we saw in the 2018 E3 trailer.
And
it's very it's similar, but some of the lines have been expanded.
Xbox is right. This image has been posted out there before, and I because this was kind of weird. It was like when this image came out, I was like, I've seen this before. So this isn't an exclusive picture, but it is the first time I think it was put into the major print that it has been. So, yeah. I think there was at some point. A few people were suggesting that this was, that this was just a mock-up or something like that. And yeah, it is sort of a mock-up, but it's like, yeah, it's not, it's not captured in game, I don't think. But yeah.
Well, no, yeah, I'm not suggesting that this isn't like a screenshot. No. Yes, it's a rendered scene, clearly, that they provided for this cover story. But and yes, there was I did some searching, and there's like there's a version of this that was published in a Finnish newspaper, and it was a very similar image, although it was changed slightly. It was slightly different, but very, very similar at the same time. So anyway, this was really interesting. And yeah, people have been commenting about how the metro, the map of the metro here, some of the lines have been expanded. So that's interesting. So maybe Night City has grown a bit since we first saw this map in that iconic shot from E3 2018. Anyway, getting back to the John Mamais interview. So, yeah, he talked about some really interesting stuff with regard to what kind of tech they built for building this game. And so one of the things he said is it's been a huge jump in terms of the number of people needed to make the game. And when you look at the height of The Witcher's development, CD Projekt Red employed about just under 200 people. And now they're around 500, and we've just been watching them grow constantly. So you've got, it's 2.5 times what it was, developing Cyberpunk as opposed to The Witcher 3. So, I mean, that's a massive jump.
It is.
It's a pretty
it is.
massive jump.
And we have and we have so much more to look forward to, because we know that there's a team already working on the multiplayer component, which is something that they normally they don't do this. Normally the whole team focuses on the game, gets the game out, then they switch to working on the expansions, not really DLCs. Again, I need to point this out because every single time I mention this, I get letters. So they typically put out expansions, not what is typically commonly referred to as DLCs, but the vernacular right now is basically everything's considered a DLC. Doesn't matter how big it is. DLC also denotes usually you have to pay for it, but in this particular, like, that's not actually what the word means. Like, there's no actual like definition of the word that actually means that. It's something that you pay for. DLC is just downloadable content. It's not paid. It's not Padelcy. It's just downloadable content. But yes, it's typically large scale stuff. And in this case, now we know that they're working on the multiplayer at the same time as they're working on the main game. Obviously, their whole team isn't committed to it. Just a small team of experts within the multiplayer realm have been doing this for a while. This is what they've been hiring for. This is what they've been hiring these network and programmers for that are specialized in multiplayer. Obviously, they're not going to be working on the single player game while they're also wanting to get the multiplayer, rolling. So yeah.
Right. So
TB is in the Discord chat. So if you have any questions that you want to them to throw at the because they're actually there talking with CDPR people today, you can throw that in. Let's say right here in the Cyberpunk 2077 chat.
Apparently Miles Tost is in Vienna this evening. That's the update I've gotten here, and that's really awesome. If you're in Austria or Vienna, in that area, you can go see a CDPR live presentation, and I'm a little envious. Not only would I love to see the presentation, I have always wanted to visit Austria. So I've been a fan of the kind of going to be revealing a part of myself that isn't necessarily something I would normally talk about, but I'm a big fan of The Sound of Music. I've always loved that show, and so yeah, I've always kind of wanted to visit Austria and Vienna, that kind of area. But anyway, back to nerdy stuff. So John admits that when they started the project, they weren't smart enough to know how many people they needed, and he said, when we wrote the initial concept for Cyberpunk 2077, we didn't know, so we grew alongside the design as it was developing, and really, you don't know how many cinematic animators you're going to need until you have a scope for the number of scenes you're going to have. We didn't have that in the beginning. We just knew we wanted to have cool cinematics, and we knew that we were going to be at least as big as The Witcher 3. So we ended up hiring a lot more people than we needed for The Witcher, because the fidelity and overall requirements of Cyberpunk 2077 crept up on us. So yeah, the studio grew massively, and then he says, now they were using the tools, of course, the engine and whatnot that they built for The Witcher 3, but, and here's another quote from John, the streaming system had to be overhauled because, well, you're moving a lot faster when you're in a vehicle as opposed to, riding Roach. So we had to rework and rewrite how all that works. Also, there's vertical streaming now. Of course, tons of verticality in the game, so they've had to accommodate that.
And there's a lot of the time now. There are some engines that can work around this with pretty good efficiency, but I don't think Red is one of those engines that does that very well. And that is the case where if you are playing a level by level mission, the game is loading what's above you, so and below you. So in the case of you're playing, tight corridors or just exploring in corridors, you're loading stuff that is immediately around the character. So it's one of the reasons like Bethesda's engine's really, really, really crap at this too, because unfortunately, and this is why you don't have like buildings that you just walk into in the Elder Scrolls engine, or sorry, the Bethesda, same thing, Bethesda engine. Because when you walk into a building, it's compact full of stuff, and they can't have all of that stuff in there and have that just a seamless entry when you're on the outside and you're trying to load a city, but you're also trying to load everything within the city, within all of the buildings in the city, all at the same time. It's like it's just that doesn't work. The engines are not there yet. Some of this new server farm based engines, like the Stadia technology, some of this stuff is putting that kind of closer within reach, but it's still really far away. So
yeah, absolutely. And then of course, I mean, that comes with its own downsides too. When you're running a game off of a server farm, you're restricted by your internet speed and all of that. So yeah. But they do seem to have a system. So like apparently there's not going to be loading screens, which is really awesome. So they've overhauled the system to accommodate all of this. But he says The Witcher is almost like a 2D game in comparison. The world was very flat. In Cyberpunk, you're going up and into huge buildings, so it is a case of vertical and horizontal streaming and hardware speeds impact that. We had to rewrite the tech to support all of that. And as somebody in the chat pointed out earlier when we were talking about minimum specs, like, they are still optimizing this game. They're still optimizing their engine, so we might not get the specs for a while yet. They're not going to release those officially until they know what, they're still working on it. The game is 6 months out. That might not seem like a long time, but there's still a lot of polish they can put into it between now and then. All right. Given the size and scope, this is something that, Saib, you've been talking about a lot, or you have mentioned several times before.
Yes, yeah.
And there's been some confusion on it because they have said there have been CDPR folks in the past who have said, you're not going to see anything procedurally generated. Now, they're talking about specific things in those cases, and you've pointed that out. That doesn't mean that there was no procedural generation used in creating. I've
gotten so much hate over this too. It's like haha, loser. See, they're not using any procedural generation for anything. And then I had somebody tell me, it's like, and this is what makes them beautiful, is that every piece of garbage that you see, every piece of paper on the ground, every piece of road, every single brick in every single building has been placed by an actual person. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. You don't understand. That's not something that's capable of happening. Why do you think they've hired 300 people? It's like, I really don't think they have 300 people spending 12 hours a day making a highway that you're going to drive over in a minute and a half. On, like, seriously, what is wrong with you?
They're not going in and actually paving a road inside the game.
Yeah, that's obviously they used. It's this from the beginning that they've used big chunks of their procedural generation tool to create sections of the city and aspects of the city that then they go in and they manually curate and place. That some pieces that they place, some things that they go in and they hand edit it in, but they haven't created they haven't gone through and placed every brick in every single wall of every single building. And there are some people that are under that impression, and it drives me mental.
Yeah, so when they're talking about you're not going to see any procedural generation, it just means like you're not going to see yes, they have gone in and given that polish and that curation to every part of the city, but that doesn't necessarily mean every apartment is going to look different, right? Like, or And when you go into a real life apartment building, you know, you go to your next door neighbor's apartment, it might look exactly the same as yours, except the decor, you know, and the furniture is different, but the layout is exactly the same. So, I mean, that makes sense. But there also, like, there aren't going to be procedurally generated quests, that kind of thing. There's not going to be the radiant quests like you get in Fallout 4. But what he says here is that given the size and scope, we have to do some procedural generation of the things you see. Like, you don't want artists to go in and place individual pipes or place pieces of trash. So we had to incorporate a lot of things like that into our process, creating things like a trash layer. When it comes to designing levels or creating them, the team's toolset for designers is called Hierarchical Prefabs Pipeline. It's basically a way how we build the levels out using prefabs, where you can go in and build out the world like it's like a Lego set. So they've got a series of tools and like some short.
And that's what we've been saying for forever. So it's nice to finally have some confirmation, because even when we've had the guests on and on either this podcast or the community podcast, it's like you guys haven't placed every single object. They're like, oh well, we don't really, and they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to give off. Is they're wanting to, you know, not focus on procedural generation, because there's a little bit of a negative stereotype with some gamers when it comes to that, because they think that means that that the things have been, you know, the quests are procedurally generated, and it's not as good as when they craft it. And what we've been saying the whole time is, no, they've been using it. Of course, they've been using the procedural generation for one thing, but they've also been using it for a bunch of different stuff, for the way that NPCs move around. And I mean, we talked about this well over like 2 years ago, and they're finally coming out and confirming, yes, this is what we're using it for, and that's what we've been saying that they've been using it for. Never once have we said that there's going to be procedural quests, because there's not. Each of the quests are hand created, like, and that's where yes, we do want that hand curation, but obviously the tops of every single building, the roadway, and all this other stuff, obviously that stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I think it also refers to, like, when you're going through quote unquote dungeons, I mean, buildings or whatever, the levels where key quests are taking place, that you're not going to be seeing repeated stuff. It's not like they just said, oh, we're going to use some algorithm to, you know, build generic dungeon A or build generic dungeon B. They have hand created, you know, a lot of the key areas and key buildings. You know, like the Grand Imperial Mall. It's not going to look like every other building in the game, just with the rooms rearranged. Or if you've ever played Daggerfall, you remember that game? Like, there were so many locations in that game. They used procedural generation to create like thousands of dungeons. And yeah, you see the building, like, after you've played a dozen of them, you can see the building blocks, you can see the different pieces that then the computer just kind of put together in different ways to create quote unquote unique dungeons. We're not going to be seeing that in this. Like, I don't think we're going to be seeing, you're not going to be seeing the evidence of that procedural generation, but they will have used some of that in the production pipeline, and some of it in like you said, like the sort of the grunge layer of the world, like probably like the smudges on walls, or, you know, yeah, the garbage blowing in the street. It's not like someone sat down and decided we're going to have a piece of paper blowing across the street at this point at this time of day. Like, a lot of that is going to be handled just by the computer, because there's really no point in you know, just having somebody design that. That would just be a waste of time. But anyway, speaking of the NPCs in the game, though, he goes and talks about how the crowds of people move about, and he says this was very technically challenging, still is, and we're still working on it, in fact. Last time I talked to the technical director, he said its current status is a real achievement where we've got all these people in the same space moving around and different to what we've seen before. They all are very unique, not just in the way they look, but the way they move. I'm paraphrasing a little bit because this is a very long paragraph. But The Witcher had crowds, but they all basically had the same walk animations, that kind of thing. There was some, there's differences in how the characters look, but in some ways they're all the same. But that's one thing I've noticed about Cyberpunk since we started seeing the in-game screenshots. All the people look very different from one another. So they've expanded, there probably will be a lot of procedural generation in terms of generating NPCs. If you get a system that works well as far as, creating realistic looking people, and I don't know this for sure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Side, but I have a feeling like when you're going into random crowds, not every person you're seeing is going to have been custom designed by somebody on
yeah. That's the other thing too, is like you can when you have a character creation tool and you've managed to actually build a proper randomizer, then the way that you create characters is you don't go in and create them one by one by one by one by one by one. If the game has a list of them, so every character has an actually existing ID and they're not randomly created by the engine while you're playing, which that's another way that some engines work as well. But in the case of like every single NPC actually has a unique ID and a unique code, and you type in the code and you type in spawn in the command engine, in the console command, and you can get that one particular citizen to appear in the codes in the system like that. All of those characters are created first. So at launch, all of those characters are created. They basically just exist as a series of numbers and items that they're wearing, and then the computer just spawns them in with the faces and whatever the way that they should be. That's a really common way of going about it. So in this particular case, developers will sit down, they'll generate a character, give it a look over. If it's good, maybe tweak one or two things, then save it, and then they create another one. And again, they move in, they tweak a little bit here and there. If it needs tweaking, if it doesn't, then they just create another one, and they can do that all day. And they have like a couple of people who do that just constantly, and that's for population. That is if they're having it so that they pre-build them. If not, and I think where we see this is in, I'm trying to remember a good example. I think one of the places that we see this is that we do see this in with respect to some of the Assassin's Creed games, where those characters are randomly generated at any given time, and so they're just pulled from a random list, and then they're kind of randomly put together on the spot. So you can see so you see some diversification, but not much. So
yeah, I can confirm that. They would especially randomize the clothing in Assassin's Creed Origins. Mm-hmm. And one of the clothing options for women was topless. And so I had, in a cutscene that I was trying to capture, a very prominent topless female character. I was like, well, this can't go on YouTube.
Yeah.
But then I watched it. I watched another version of that someone else had captured, and the woman was fully clothed. I was like,
yeah, because it's based off of randomness. And which Assassin's Creed game was that?
Origins, the one before Odyssey. Yeah.
Okay.
The one set in Egypt, which was fantastic. Really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see here. We've got some more. We'll push through to the end of this article because we've been on this for a while. But he talks a little bit about the ray tracing. He said we started working on that about a year ago. It's not something we started with because ray tracing is also a recent thing within the industry. And we use ray tracing for emissive lights to make adverts and the neon lighting you see to make the neon lighting you see look amazing. We also used ray traced ambient occlusion and ray tracing for the skyline. That sounds massively heavy on resources.
Yes, it really does.
That's
This is one of these scenarios where it's like, ooh, I don't know if this is a good thing or not. But yeah.
yes, and so that's one of these things where is it really worth it for the we're just at the entry level with this technology, and I imagine like if you have exactly the right rig, it would look amazingly fantastic. But is it worth it for your average player? It's doubtful, but also really cool. So I'm still torn about whether or not I will be upgrading to a rig that can handle that. But may or may not be the best use of our resources here. But anyway, I'm going to skip that bit. But anyway, here's the conclusion of the interview. John says, "That's the game development sector that we're in, creating big, great-looking AAA games. And as technology changes, we're expected to use it too, and we want to use it because that stuff keeps looking cooler and cooler all the time. We'll always keep pushing the envelope on the way a game can look, and that's one of the most exciting things about working at CD Projekt Red, getting to do just that. I think Cyberpunk is going to be a real showpiece in terms of tech, especially as this generation of consoles is fading out. I think we're going to be that one last big, exceptional-looking title on this current generation of hardware." So that's where the quote that you see on the thumbnail comes from. So anyway, very cool interview from John Mamais at PAX Australia. So yeah, it's really neat. I love hearing about the technology that they've put behind this game, and I really think we're going to be seeing something unlike we've seen ever before, really, in terms of just how the world is put together and what we're going to experience in that game. So can't wait for April. Gonna be awesome. Any final thoughts on that side before we move on?
No, I think, yes. I think overall, we keep hearing good things. We keep hearing that, we know that they're on a tight time schedule. We just saw Bloodlines delayed here. So a lot of people are still kind of pensive about this, whether or not we will see the game be delayed. I think we can say after looking at this that I honestly think that we're not going to see this delayed, because we keep seeing a constant progress of the development, and that the developers are clearly taking into account things and issues that are making this, that are making their way in properly on a timely basis. So yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and this is not like they announced that April date because they were pretty sure they could hit it, and knowing them, they'd have to be pretty darn sure. And so, yes, there's always a chance it could be delayed, of course, but it seems unlikely at this point.
Yeah. Of course, if they run into an emergency or a terrible thing happens or what have you, that's understandable. I can't tell you how many games have been ruined by floods, and all I have to say is make sure your primary servers are above the flood zone. So like if you work in a you have a 3-story building, make sure all your digital devices and all your like hard memory stuff is on the top floor, not in the basement right next to the water heater. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, no kidding. You'd think that would be yeah.
Just as an example, my water heater exploded about a year and a half ago. And yeah, they actually explode, or they can. And when they do, everything on that floor gets soaked, or in that room or whatever. So, that is a, I mean, sometimes they explode and leave a giant hole, but in this case, it was more like, it was a rupture explode. But yeah, it's like, don't put stuff down there. like have your stuff up on the second or the third floor for if you can. And this, of course, I think there's one particular indie game where they lost everything due to a flood, and it's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Their last online backup copy was like 6 months prior, so they lost
Ouch.
6 months
well,
of work.
that's just bad practice too.
Yeah, that's just horrible practice. You should be backing up the stuff at least once a week, onto
At
something
least.
like hard physical. So,
and preferably daily.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, so that's our Cyberpunk news for the day. Thank you so much for everybody for the awesome conversation in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description. Now, I will double check that the link is correct, because again, TB Elias was saying it didn't work for him, so I will double check that. I don't know. The link is not supposed to expire, so don't know why that would happen, but we'll try that out. So, but yeah, definitely join the Discord server. Lots of great conversations happen there, and you can chat with us. You can chat with other Triple S community members about all the things we love to talk about. Stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Funny news story I want to talk about. I was going to start with this, but then we dove right into the Cyberpunk stuff. But apparently, police Protectrons are real, and they walk among us. What you're seeing on your screen right now, if you're watching live, or not even just live, but if you're watching on YouTube, this is a police robot called the HP RoboCop. It's a police robot that patrols a park somewhere in California, and so these were unveiled. I believe it was back in June. It was unveiled. Yep. This robot is patrolling this park, and you can see it makes that drone noise. It says things like, it says, "Good day to you." And here, this shot is really funny. They're posing all these kids around it to take a picture, and the robot's like, "Excuse me, you're in my way."
Excuse me, you're in my way.
But anyway, so
it's so funny.
So these were unveiled back in June, and then but just this about a week ago, this very robot was at the scene of a crime. The headline here at ScienceAlert.com: police robot on patrol completely ignores woman trying to summon the police. And I mean, this is not. She runs up to
the robot. She's like, "Please, there's people being attacked over there. Move out of the way."
Yeah, pretty much, basically. This is also funny here in this shot of it, because this robot, it goes around this corner here. It's like, "Good day to you," and there's like a person walking 20 feet ahead of it. I'm like, is that who it's talking to? Anyway, anyway, turns out that this robot does not even have a connection to the local police department.
It can't actually summon the police.
Which it seems like, what is even the point? But these robots, they're not brand new. They've been used to as security robots for a while, but like for mall security and that kind of a thing. But there's a story from 2017. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen right now of one of these mall security robots just decided one night to end it all by diving into a fountain in the mall. It was just like, screw this. My existence, my job sucks. My existence is pointless. So yes, their Protectrons are real, and they're just as inept as the ones in Fallout. Who
It's
knew that
so
game was so
funny.
prophetic? It's
It's so funny, and it's so sad at the same time. It's like, oh, good lord.
it Yeah, and I mean, you've got Elon Musk worrying about an AI takeover of the world or how it could be a threat to humanity. And then I look at this and I'm like, we're safe for a while.
For a little while.
So anyway. All right. So that's anyway. I was going to start with that story, but we dove right into Cyberpunk. So anyway, hopefully that was good for a laugh for all of you. So we've got some other gaming news to talk about. So yes, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 has been. Oh yeah, they do look like Daleks too, don't they?
They look
2,
disturbingly like Daleks,
yeah.
actually.
Bloodlines 2 has been delayed, which is unfortunate. The new release window is not confirmed. They are still aiming for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, like in their official statement, the delay is they want to avoid the problems they had with the release of the original Bloodlines, which famously had a lot of problems, bugs, and things at launch.
It also came out against some major competition. And I think one of their biggest concerns is that they're releasing so big major RPGs don't come out around the same time. And they most certainly don't come out around the same time when they're FPS RPGs. FPS RPGs, big ones, are like once every 2 to 3 years. And in this particular case, you've had Borderlands release in the fall. You're having Cyberpunk release in the spring. You don't want to. It's a really bad timing for them to release the game. It is really bad timing. It would be better if they released in the summer or the fall. And I think that is a major thing that played into them saying, "Let's move it to the fall."
Very
I
likely.
don't
Now
think it
they're
was.
not
I don't think it was
necessarily going to
the
come out.
major thing. I don't think it was the first thing on the list, but I think it was a strong second component that said, yeah, even if we could rush it out and super crunch, I don't think it's worth it. I think it's better to give ourselves an extra 6 months and put it out in the fall, and then that way we'll be able to yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And people, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
response to this has been, yes, the game needs it. Like it clearly, the animations need work. That it's too early, and the company's not necessarily going to just come out and say, yeah, we're delaying this partly because we don't want to compete with Cyberpunk. Well, they're not going to say that, but I agree that's probably at least a happy side effect of this is that they're not going to be competing with the major competition. So.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's unfortunate, but a lot of the response has been, yeah, good. We want this game to be really good, and so we're okay with waiting a little longer for it. So yeah, people don't seem too disappointed by this. Maybe because it's not a big surprise.
I have heard that. I have heard a lot of people say from the get-go that they think it'll be delayed, and that there were a lot of rumors fairly early on. And I did kind of say kind of at the get-go, it's like, I don't think they're gonna, like, I haven't heard any of these rumors directly, but it wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but wait until they announce it officially. And yeah, and now they've announced it officially, so we can officially say that yes, this is probably going to be later. And Outstar is probably correct. It is probably most likely going to come out in the fall. It's where I would put it out if I were them. It makes the most amount of sense. I would, like, early fall. I would aim for like probably early October, maybe even early September. Is kind of where I would kind of aim it out at. So we'll see which one of those do. I definitely wouldn't suggest November. You want this game out before Halloween for sure.
Yes, that seems like a good window for it.
Mm-hmm.
Late summer, early fall, just seems to fit the game.
Yeah.
as well
Yeah,
as
and you want that you do kind of want that, and you want it to percolate before that. So
hmm.
you want that out probably a good couple of weeks prior to. So yeah.
All right, so you know, we've seen a lot of AAA game companies do some pretty amazing things. We've seen them just take their, you know, anti-consumer practices to amazingly, you know, just astounding levels. We've seen them step in so much BS that it basically, you know, you can't tell where the BS ends and the real info begins. But Blizzard has done something absolutely magical. Blizzard has gotten Republicans and Democrats to frickin' agree with each other. That is how much
Congratulations.
they have stepped in it with this whole thing about Hong Kong and Blitzchung and China. That U.S. Congress, members of the U.S. Congress, sent a letter to Bobby Kotick expressing their concerns about this and their how Blizzard is their concerns about their promotion of their restriction of pro-democratic, pro-Hong Kong speech,
Mhm.
and it's signed by 2 U.S. senators, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat, and 3
Oh,
members of Congress that are
yeah.
also from both sides of the aisle. Congratulations, Blizzard. EA's really, it's looking like they're going to be losing that top spot for worst gaming company,
Hmm.
basically ever. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a magical moment. So, yeah, I've got the letter in front of me here. I don't know if there's any point in really reading this, but they conclude it by saying, you know, we urge you in the strongest terms to reconsider your decision with respect to Mr. Chung. You have the opportunity to reverse course. We urge you to take it. And really, this just emphasizes that Blizzard is they're trying to play both sides of a field where you just can't. You can't. There are some values that are just incompatible with one another. You can't be pro American values and pro Chinese government values. This just doesn't work. So anyway, so that's just something amazing that they've managed to accomplish. But speaking of companies being full of BS, Bethesda has finally come out and, you know, they've decided to stop lying. At least that's one good thing. But they basically said, yeah, we're not doing just cosmetic things in the Atom shop. So at least they're being honest about it now. But they put out in their official statement, they said, we love that there are so many types of players within Fallout 76, and one of our primary goals is to reward everyone no matter how you play. This includes our approach to earning atoms through challenges and the types of items to unlock with them in the Atomic Shop. Our approach to these items at launch was to keep them purely cosmetic, but after looking at all the data, it became clear that to constantly deliver content that keeps Fallout 76 fresh and exciting for all, we needed to rethink our approach to the Atomic Shop. So, basically, they're going back on their word, but they're saying it's because you guys wanted it. They basically say that in the next paragraph. Well, we had many ideas. Basically they say, you know, they started adding repair kits, scrap kits, the Collectron, all those kinds of things based on user feedback. So that they're saying it's because of you, because you asked for it. We're putting pay to win stuff in our shop.
Yeah, we know that you secretly want this.
Yeah, you this is clearly what you want. So terror cases. How can they keep something in a state that never existed in the first place? Very good question.
Another topic that we weren't necessarily going to address, but I was checking it out, and that was the new footage for Jedi: The Fallen Order, and I've got to say that I forgot that this came out. This was on my list of things to review yesterday, because it came out I think almost 2 days ago now. And I've got to say that the combat looks a lot better than what we saw at E3. It's much faster. There's a new fight with a hulking beast sort, and it does look a lot better than what we saw at the E3 showcase where Respawn kind of showed this off. It's definitely improved as far as like speed and stuff like that, and that it kind of feels like it validated our original statement on it, which was, look, they were playing the game in such a way as to not in such a way to show off the game's beauty and the graphics, and to show off the character without making it look like a spastic 13-year-old was playing the game, which arguably plays it better than a developer who's trying to show off things, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so in this particular case, yeah, the gameplay is way, 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 way improved. So good on Respawn. I won't say good on EA, because EA is crap and doesn't deserve any recognition for this. This game is being good in spite of EA, not because of EA. That Respawn's basically putting together a good game because they've had the ability to ignore a lot of direction coming from EA. EA is still saying, guys, are you sure you can't find a way to put loot boxes in the game? I mean, we're really missing out on a lot of money here, guys. And it's gross. But at any rate, sorry, I don't want to just go down the exact same rabbit hole I just went down with the Modern Warfare thing. So, the Respawn looks like they have a good game on their looks like they have a good game on their hands here. It looks as if the game is going to be a little bit more faster in combat than what we were speculating to begin with. And yeah, looks good. Sorry, a little bit of a segue. It was on the list, but I did forget to add it to the list. I also forgot to review it. I was trying to quickly check it out here.
Yeah,
So.
well, I am that's one I am looking forward to for when it comes out in November. I'm looking forward to trying it out, seeing how it feels, seeing how it compares to the Jedi Knight series that came before it. And speaking of games,
again, we're not going to be buying this game to support EA. We're buying this game to give a reasonable nod to Respawn, who has been pushing back on EA. It's funny, you know how well connected I am. I hear lots of funny rumors, and the rumor going around right now is Respawn's like, yeah, so EA, you just pay the bills, okay, and we'll just make games. And whenever they get a call, I heard a rumor. It's a rumor. I don't suspect that it's true. I really don't. But I heard a rumor that somebody from EA made a phone call over to the Respawn studio to talk about adding monetization mechanics. They put them on hold and never went back to the call. That's just a rumor I heard, but I think what that rumor is emphasizing is something that's true, is that Respawn is not taking orders from EA the same way that they have in the past, in the same way that other studios have in the past. They're just not listening to them. They're focusing on making good games. They're focusing on making games that they know are going to play well and do well. And whenever EA comes calling, it's not their first priority. And honestly, oh my, like, good Lord, if every studio could just treat EA like this and just ignore their publisher, not necessarily to the point where they're going to start shutting you down because you're just too difficult to work with, but it's like if they could just push back on this stuff a little bit more. I mean, in all honesty, I think EA would be a far better company for it right now, even with the same people in charge, even with the same absolute the one fellow who was in charge of the um who was in charge of the last uh what was that one game? What was the one that where they really failed really hard? Was Battlefield? Yeah, it was Battlefield. The last Battlefield game. Just the guy who was in charge of that, so arrogant, so unbelievably arrogant to just push people around like he did. And he was a nightmare to work with from everything that I've heard about him. It's like, yeah, you didn't want to work with this guy. He was pompous, he was smug, he was just constantly just constantly signaling how much of a better person he was than you. It was suffocating working under him. And he's no longer working at EA. He's starting his own studio. Good luck to that. I hope it crashes and burns. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's just bad. It's just bad. And I feel bad because like Cliff Blazinski, I can never remember to say his last name. Cliff, who created the Gears games, he started his own studio. It failed hard. It failed hard because he didn't understand something in the that was really core with character development and character creation when creating characters. And it's a shame that he's no longer in the industry because of that, because he didn't understand that. I would rather somebody not be in the industry because they didn't understand how not to try and take every single cent from their gamers as they possibly could. It's like that alone is just it's just not healthy. It's just not healthy in general. It's like, but anyways,
Mm-hmm. All right, and speaking of games that we're looking forward to, though, The Outer Worlds is just about a week away, and
hmm
they released a launch trailer. Now, it emphasizes the different ways you can play the game. I am definitely, I know, as we've said before, the hype for this game has kind of it basically fell through the floor in a lot
hmm
of ways, but I don't know, I'm still excited for it. I know some of you are as well. So
you're picking it up on the Windows Store, correct?
I will be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's on the Epic Store. Sadly, I will not be picking it up on the Epic Store. I will not be picking it up on the. I won't be playing this game at all. It's like I got to see some footage of it, and I've got to say it was one of the worst games for my motion sickness that I've had to deal. I have not had this instant level of like I need a bucket faster than I think it was some game way back in the like PlayStation 1 days.
Hmm.
It was just so bad. It was just so terrible. Um, but it's just, and I'm hoping there's a fix for it, but I'm not gonna waste money on it until I can see some improvement there. But yeah, the footage that they had originally come out, and seeing a little bit of it, on a private screening it was instantly like, okay, yeah, I can't even like 10 seconds in, and I'm sorry, I can't keep watching. I have to look at something else. Just talk me through it, and let me hear the audio, because it was just that bad, as far as the first person goes. The screenshots are great. Yeah, my ultimate weakness, first person.
Hmm.
The screenshots are great. I still think this is going to be a decent game. As much as Private Division is involved here, and as much as they've made some really terrible decisions, as much as they are part of the mafia, the actual mafia that is 2K. Unfortunately, that is unfortunate, but that's not who's going to succeed from this game doing well. The people who are going to succeed the most from this game doing well is Obsidian themselves, and they deserve a win. And I think this game is good enough that if you can play it, and if you can get it on the Windows Store, or if you can buy it for the consoles, both consoles, it works great, and it's absolutely 100%, you know It's even going to be on the Switch, right? So like, yeah, get it through any way that you can, and appreciate it, because I think this is going to be a good game. I understand that people are upset that they took the deal, but as we've covered before, that was not a decision that they wanted. And the fact that the owner of the CEO and the chief guy from Microsoft got up on the stage and said how important their relationship with Steam was, and that they are not looking to hold people back going forward. Um, that is understandable. But the other thing you have to remember is that Private Division had the sole right to demand that this game not be on Steam and for it to go onto Epic. Uh, this was their call. Yes, they could have pushed back on it, but if they had said no, we refuse, they would have had a lot of problems to face, more problems than it would have been worth. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place, and as somebody commented on, well, that's their fault. That's not their fault. You can't, like, not everybody can prepare themselves for every single eventuality. Some people can, most people can't. So
Right. Well, and nobody saw the Epic Game Store coming. That's the thing.
yeah, yeah. The Epic Game Store wasn't even on the radar, like, 6 months before this thing was announced, right? So how can they see that far into the future? It's absolutely disgusting. It's frustrating, and it's really, really, really dumb. Um, and there's still more rumors that there's going to be a crossover between the Xbox and Steam coming down the road. That there's something there that they've been working on. We're not hearing any less rumors in this. We're hearing more and more rumors. So this is something to kind of keep your eye on. And don't be shocked if the next Xbox comes with a Steam integration that can access your library over there, and that they will include more of their PC titles on the Steam store, and not just through the Windows Store as well. And I think that they realize that it's actually a good thing to work together, because you've got big companies like Amazon and Google who are walking in who go, you guys don't even understand. All of your money that you make collectively is what we're putting in for research and development. Okay? So yeah, it's big competition is coming. And yes, Microsoft is a massive company. Obviously, is one of the biggest in the world, if not it's still the biggest. I think there's a bit of qualms between who is the actual biggest. Microsoft has been forced to kind of segment themselves by law, whereas Google and Amazon have not had this forced down on them. Um, Microsoft's actually been in court and has actually been ordered to keep their departments more or less segmented from each other. It's why Xbox has not, in the past few years, why Xbox did not receive the funding in this last generation that they should have. A whole bunch of inside baseball stuff that they're going on, but yeah, overall, sorry, kind of going down a little bit of a
Oh, that's okay.
spiral there.
Yeah, but Outer Worlds comes out, I believe, the 25th.
Mhm.
But we will be checking it out, and
As
we
far
will
as
let you know what we think. We've got our names
yeah,
in for hopefully getting pre-release review copies for that, but I've got no
I
confirmation on that yet.
I do want to. I do. Somnolence is asking about the drama between Chris and Obsidian. Look, there's one person at Obsidian I don't like. Everybody else there is solid people that have been working on games for a very long time, and yes, Chris is a very great guy. Um, we've interviewed him before. I've known I've known him for quite a while in one form or another, and he's a great guy. I understand his problem and his being shafted in the way that he was, and why Obsidian did what they did. I really get that, and I have explained it before, but just to quickly summarize it in the best possible way, is it's like two of your best friends having an argument and them trying to like cut their friendship off, and then you being stuck in the middle. It's like, well, what do? They're both your best friends. They're both people that you know that you admire. What are you supposed to do? Especially when the argument was based on the argument was based on a misunderstanding more than anything. And in this case, really was. Chris was upset because they were trying to get this like non-compete clause thing, which again, the non-compete thing is kind of an industry standard. It's not so that you don't have the ability to work for the next few years. It's so that your next employer calls up your previous employer and says, okay, how much money do you want to make this go away? And they say, throw me $100K. Okay, done. And that's just part of the business that is this stuff. Movie places have this all the time. TV, radio. Conan O'Brien had this happen to him, and it was rare because they tried to get this freed up so that he could immediately go over to his new show, and they stuck to this thing because they just wanted to screw him over. They were that butthurt over this whole scenario. If you remember the whole Conan O'Brien thing, this is a standardized thing that just wasn't communicated very well, and it was basically a misunderstanding. So I don't hold this over on Obsidian at all, and I still respect Chris immensely. Probably one of the top between him and Mark is probably the two best writers. I'm writing my own book, and I give them both a homage. Is that how you say that?
Close enough.
Homage. I pay homage to both of them, with small little things here and there throughout the book, not constantly but pretty consistently. Once every couple of chapters, there's a little tiny like wink. It's a very subtle Easter egg, and that's because they're both good at what they do. And I understand they both had hurt feelings over this kind of stuff, and that sucks. But it's like picking between two of your best friends. It's like what would you do in that scenario, right? So yeah, it's definitely a bad place to be in. But overall, like, look, when it comes to this, I think this is a good game. My recommendation is to definitely pick it up, but not on the Epic Store. Whatever you do, don't buy it on the Epic Store. Please do not buy it on the Epic Store. Buy it on something else, anything else. If you're going to wait until it shows up on Steam, wait until it's on Steam. Just make sure it's favorited on Steam and tweet at them. Looking forward to seeing this on Steam. Won't buy it on this right now, and for whatever reason I can't buy it on either consoles or the Microsoft Store, but it is on the Microsoft Store. So yeah. So
all right, I think that's about all we have for today. So thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you for supporting this show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave. That really helps us out. Also subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment below. All of those things help show YouTube that you appreciate this content, and it really helps us out. Of course, also, if you share this with your friends or your online communities, that helps a ton as well. We really appreciate it. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon, Old Man Manson, and the two anonymous supporters. Channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Padzernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Paul Young, and Night City Punk. Thank you all so very much. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other platforms this podcast goes out to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings on YouTube, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. See the Discord server for exact times and schedule. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the SSS League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity on behalf of Cybsidian. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you all again very soon.